Hey everyone, welcome back to the Advanced C# Programming series. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk a little bit about scriptable objects. Now, if you've never used one before, don't worry, I'll explain why it's useful. But essentially what it is a scriptable object is a special type of Unity object that lets you store data as an asset outside of your scene and model behaviors. You can think of it like a script-driven data file. You create one, fill it with values, and reuse it across multiple objects or systems without writing separate code for each one. In Unity terms, a mono behavior controls how something behaves, and that's like the scripts that we've created before. And a scriptable object holds that data that drives the behavior. If this feels like word salad, don't worry, it's more of a definition. I would just kind of write this down and we'll return to it after we actually script it out in a moment. But you can think of this as how big studios manage enemy stats, weapon systems, power-ups, and even cutscenes. And they do this without hard coding everything. All right, so let's go ahead and right click on the scripts folder, go to create, here, create, and if you're using Unity 6 like me, you'll have this model behavior script. Actually, is this Unity 6? Yeah, Unity 6. I thought there was a lot more scripting options. Let's see. Is it separate? Yeah, scripting here. There's model behavior, there's scriptable object script, empty C# script. What we're going to do is we're just going to modify a model behavior script for now, just so you can see how you would update it, like how it's different. So go ahead and create a new model behavior script in your scripts folder, and then just name that movement data. And then I'm going to double click it so it adds it inside of my Writer or your Visual Studio. It'll open it as a separate tab. Now, the first thing you do is when creating a scriptable object is you want to change it from model behavior to actual scriptable object here. And that'll convert the script from a model behavior script to the scriptable object script. Now, in order to create it as a scriptable object in our menu, so that I can right click and actually use this data file, we have to actually define it up top. Now we use create asset menu here so that Unity adds this to our asset creation menu. And then we give it a file name. So this is new movement data. And then the menu name is scriptable object movement data. So if I save this and I go back into Unity after it compiles, and I can right click in here and just create a new folder, and I'll just call it SO for scriptable objects. Now when I right click in here, I'm going to be looking for a folder under create, and I'm going to be looking for, let's see, scriptable objects down here. And you could see now we have one called movement data, because in our menu name we created something called scriptable objects here, and it's called movement data. Now the file name it's going to create is called new movement data. So when I click on this and I click on movement data, you can see it created a file called new movement data. Now there's nothing in here yet, and we're going to actually make this a little bit easier. In our game object controller here, I'm going to highlight these fields here. I'm going to hit Control X to cut those out, and it's going to give us some errors. You can see across here because those variables are now missing, so it doesn't know where those are at, but we're going to fix that in a second. And then inside of here, I'm going to get rid of start and update, so you just have the open and closing curly braces. I'm going to paste those in there, and I'm going to hit Control S to save that. Now when I go back inside of here, and it looks like it didn't update right away, but if I right click and go to create and then scriptable objects movement data, you can see, oh, the other thing that I messed up on, sorry, the reason why I didn't show up, let me delete that new one, is we need to make sure that these are public so that you can access them. So I'm just going to type the word public here. And I believe if I hold, is it Control and Alt and I push the arrow key down? Oh, Alt and Shift on a PC, and I just start typing public, I can write over both of those, and I hit Control S to save that. Now that should update movement data. Let's see. Oh, I also need to get rid of this. Sorry. Got some errors there. And let's see, is it my header here? I might have to create another one. Yeah, so let's try that one more time. So create, and then scriptable object, and then movement data. And oh, the issue is because we still have to fix this. It's not going to compile this script until we fix this code. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do in my game object controller here is I'm going to paste this line of code in here just so you can see. And it's a serialized field, and it's just a variable, and it's called movement data, and it's of type movement data, which is the name of our class here, our scriptable object class. And then what I can do is I could say, hey, the movement speed that I'm trying to connect with is this one here. So I'm going to grab movement data here, and I'm going to paste it in front of movement speed. I'm going to put a dot here, and it knows that it's connected to that one. So same thing here. I'm going to copy this with the dot, and I'm just going to paste that in front of scale, rotation here, and I'm going to save that. Now when I go back in here, that since we don't have any errors, it should show this. There we go. So now we have move speed, rotation speed, and scale speed. Now notice I don't have this scriptable object attached to my cube, right? This cube is just looking for this scriptable object that's referenced here. So you want to make sure you drag that in there. So this exists outside of the scene. Like this is always persistent across any level. This is a data container. So I can reuse movement speed, rotation speed, and scale speed anywhere, like in any scene, like as we make new levels or your character progresses or they join new lands or something. You have this scriptable object that, again, it's a data container that can be reused. So let's test that. So I'm going to save that. Let's try that one more time. So let's test that. I'm going to press play. And now when I move my cube around, or I push my Q to rotate, E, Z, or X, all of those attributes copy over to that cube. And what's nice too is, let's press play one more time. Remember I mentioned that this persists, right? Because it's a scriptable object. Well, if I open up this don't destroy on load here, you can see that it actually has a debugger in here that persists across multiple levels. So that's it for this lesson on scriptable objects, and hopefully that made a little bit of sense. We're going to be using them a lot, but just think of them again as just data containers that you can store attributes.